Nicolas Poussin was the greatest French painter of the 17th century. Today, he's best remembered as the father of French classicism, a serious artist, perhaps more revered than loved, whose erudition and formal restraint offered a model for generations of subsequent artists. But the works he produced during his early Roman career in the 1620s and 1630s show a different side. They're full of drunken revelry and sexual abandon, violence and passion of every kind. They're also full of dancing. For in these years, Poussin made a name for himself as a painter of dances. Ours is the first exhibition to focus on Poussin's dancing pictures. Doing so allows us to consider this lighter side of a serious artist, wild and joyous, perhaps a more inviting angle of approach to the imaginary world of Poussin. Born in Normandy, Poussin began his professional career in Paris, before traveling at age 30 to Rome, the beating heart of the European art world. Upon his arrival there in 1624, he was obviously dazzled by the treasures of the Eternal City. Renaissance paintings that graced its palaces and churches, ancient sculptures that stood in its gardens and adorned its villas. Along with his friend and roommate, the sculptor François Duquesnoy, Poussin made a systematic study of antique sculptures, drawing them incessantly and even taking careful measurements, absorbing a classical canon of proportions and vocabulary of gesture. It was in antique reliefs that he discovered dance, frozen in time, as a central theme for his own work. Poussin's fascination with classical antiquity extended to its literature. Poring over Ovid's first-century mythological poems, the Metamorphoses and the Fasti, he developed an intimate knowledge of ancient myth. He drew on this knowledge for the painting behind me, a masterpiece of his early maturity, which deploys characters from Ovid's Metamorphoses in a kind of human garden. At the center of the scene dances Flora, Roman goddess of flowers and springtime. She's surrounded by the mortals who are turned into flowers in Ovid's tales of love and transformation. For all of his carefully finished studies after the antique, Poussin seldom used drawing truly to invent, that is, to generate wholly new concepts on paper. The preparatory drawings that survive from his hand often show complicated arrays of more or less faceless figures, carefully arranged and lit. This is because many of his compositions actually began as tiny sculptures. Having learned to model three-dimensional forms with his friend, the sculptor Duquesnoy, Poussin worked out his compositions using wax models, formed with his own hands and arranged in a kind of diorama. Several drawings presented in the exhibition seem to have been made in this way, including this one, an early preparatory study from the Royal Collection for the realm of Flora. Here again, the springtime goddess dances in the center, surrounded by figures rendered with striking concision, their heads barely marked with facial features, their bodies outlined with a few broad pen strokes. But we are struck at once by the precision and consistency with which the light seems to fall on these figures, articulating the muscled torso of Ajax at left, the slender, sinewy forms of Adonis's hunting dogs. The play of light and shadow here seems not invented, but observed, and so it surely was, from the little bodies that Poussin had fashioned in wax and arranged with care. A number of works in the exhibition draw inspiration from a specific ancient sculpture, this 2nd century Roman relief known as the Borghese Dancers, and lent to us by the Louvre. Displayed in Poussin's time as an over-door decoration at the Villa Borghese, this work was renowned among early modern artists and antiquarians for its portrayal of graceful, measured movement. With hands outstretched, 5 maidens join in a dance between fluted pilasters. Each figure is slightly different from her partners. Their clasped hands and fluttering draperies find many echoes in Poussin's dancing pictures, where bodies are likewise rhythmically disposed in shallow, relief-like spaces. One such work is this ring of dancers in a wild landscape, wine-drunk and rowdy. Flying feet and clothing convey a sense of abandon in keeping with the rites of Pan, the woodland god represented by a horned herm at right. For all its dynamism, the composition appears curiously suspended. Ribbons and draperies seem to float in midair. It's a bit as though Poussin had colorized an ancient relief sculpture, breathing life into stone only to a point. Having worked out the chain of dancing figures with inspiration from the Borghese Dancers and some practical assistance from his wax figurines, Poussin used the motif here and in a second painting, both today in the collections of the National Gallery in London. The Adoration of the Golden Calf holds up a dark mirror to the Bacchanalian dance in the last picture we saw, a truly magnificent and exceptional loan from our partners at the National Gallery in London. This painting is the only one of Poussin's dancing pictures with a biblical subject, the Israelites' worship of the golden calf, taken from the book of Exodus. While their leader Moses is off communing with God on Mount Sinai, the Israelites melt down their jewelry and forge an idol, a golden calf that they worship as a god. In Poussin's imagining, the tiny figure of Moses at far left is quite dramatically upstaged by the idol itself and the idolatrous dance to which it gives rise. By far the largest of Poussin's dancing pictures, this scene portrays the Athenian youth Hymenaeus, an awkwardly large figure here at far right. He has disguised himself as a woman in order to watch a fertility ritual in which his beloved, an aristocratic lady, is taking part. The vast majority of the canvas, though, is given over to a graceful braid of dancing figures and the musicians who accompany them. The picture was commissioned for the Palacio del Buen Retiro, built in Madrid in the 1630s for Philip IV of Spain. Constructed on an immense scale, the palace overflowed with some 800 paintings, several dozen of them by leading contemporary artists in Rome. Poussin's inclusion in the project confirmed his growing renown, closely tied to his dancing subjects. This work is an exceptional loan from MASP, the Sao Paulo Museum of Art. It has not left Brazil since its acquisition in the 1950s, and it underwent a transformative conservation treatment in 2009. Centuries of overpaint were removed, helping to confirm the attribution to Poussin with greater clarity. In a somewhat more startling development, this cleaning also revealed that the herm at the center of the scene does indeed represent Priapus, the Roman god of fertility, whose chief attribute had been painted out by a prim Victorian restorer. Dances, of course, were not all that Poussin painted. In the same years when he was turning out images of bacchanalian revelry, he treated a range of biblical and mythological subjects, as well as scenes from Roman history. Among the most remarkable works from this period are his pictures portraying the abduction of the Sabine women, a story recounted by the ancient historians Plutarch and Livy, and by the ancient poets Virgil and Ovid. The newly founded city of Rome lacks a female population, and so King Romulus and his men kidnap women from the neighboring Sabine tribe. Commonly known as the Rape of the Sabines, the story is one of abduction for the purpose of sexual assault. Poussin's depictions of this theme are obviously images of violence, not dancing, yet their complex choreography has attracted endless comparison to ballet, whose 17th century roots were in fact entwined with military training. Poussin worked out his two versions within a brief period, shifting his wax figurines like pieces on a chessboard to make preparatory drawings, and finally paintings. As a group, these works help us see how the disposition of bodies in space can affect our understanding of a story, creating a sense of chaos or order. The Sabines group is represented in this exhibition by 3 of Poussin's preparatory drawings, one magnificent finished painting, and an unusually important copy after the other by the great modern painter of dance, Edgar Degas. This gallery also contains a recreation of Poussin's toy theater to help us consider the artist's process, from wax figurines to drawings to paintings. This painting is an exceptional loan from the Metropolitan Museum of Art and a true masterpiece of Poussin's early career. It portrays King Romulus of Rome at upper left. He raises his cloak in a signal to his troops, who set upon the unsuspecting Sabines with cruel force. For all its brutality, the scene looks strangely choreographed. Coordinated and repeated gestures marshal the figures into a kind of geometric order. This marriage of violence and order would have made a lot of sense, I think, to the picture's first owner, the man who commissioned it from Poussin, Charles de Créquy, a French general and ambassador to Rome who made his career fighting in the wars of Louis XIII and dancing in ballets at his court. Writing to a friend in 1648, Poussin remarked, "Just as the 24 letters of the alphabet serve to make up our words and express our thoughts, so do the forms of the human body express the passions of the soul and make outwardly visible what is in our minds." The films exhibited in the final gallery of our exhibition bear out this claim, engaging Poussin in a dialogue beyond words. Here to tell us more is Sara Cooper, co-curator of the films.
Hi, my name is Sara Cooper, and I am the Performance Program Specialist here at the Getty Museum, where I organize live performances that happen out in our courtyards and gardens here at the Getty Center. And I'm really excited to have had the opportunity to collaborate with Emily Beeny, curator of the exhibition, on bringing performance into the galleries. These choreographers represent some of the most exciting thinkers and movers working in dance in Los Angeles today. And as we looked at Poussin's works together, they found eye-opening ways to dig into their artworks, pull out details, expressions, textures, gestures, and new perspectives about how the visual story was formed in a way that only someone with the intimate knowledge of the physical experience of dance and its capacity for expression could uncover. What emerged was really a conversation between artists, a dialogue that transcended centuries of distance and radically separated by cultural contexts and artistic tools, yet found compelling resonance with each other in their mutual investigations of the distinct emotions and meaning that only dance can elicit. Our first film is by the artist Emil, who reimagines a new narrative for the Sabine tribe, depicted in Poussin's masterwork, The Attack of the Sabine Women. Our next choreographer, Michaela Taylor, is known for her highly staccato, almost glitch-like movements, where she and her dancers move through what feels like a succession of micro-freeze frames with heightened expressions on their faces. For Michaela, she was very interested in delving into the individual worlds of the figures Poussin depicted and into the internal turmoil depicted on their faces. Our final choreographer, Ana Maria Alvarez, saw in Poussin natural landscapes with richly colored textiles in motion and an investigation of the mystery of ritual. In his painting, The Dance of Priapus, Poussin shows us a private ritual being performed by a group of women dancing in a ring. Ana Maria's film also draws us into the private world of a group of women, all dancing together unself-consciously. These short clips represent just a tiny window into the worlds that each of these choreographers conjured for their full-length films, each of which are about 15 minutes long and are streaming online. I urge all of you to go online and watch the entire new works of art that they each created for this project. You can find them at www.getty.edu/Poussin_video. I just want to say a special thank you to all of our choreographers for all the hard work that they put into realizing these original new artworks for this project. I hope all of you at home will be able to come to the galleries and see them installed and in action soon.